Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, dear devotees and well-wishers, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I am conducting an interview here for Books Are the Basis. It is an initiative started by the ISKCON Education Ministry to speak to senior devotees to gain inspiration for reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And so today I have the great pleasure to sit with Pranada Comtois. Pranada is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and she joined ISKCON, or she joined the Los Angeles Temple in 1975 at 17 years old. And Srila Prabhupada accepted her as his disciple in 1976. She distributed Srila Prabhupada's books for several years and served as the temple commander at the Gita Nagari farm. As the production manager for Gita Nagari Press, she oversaw the production of the 2 final volumes of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, forgive me. She also served in managerial capacities for Back to Godhead magazine and the BBT for many years. She spearheaded the construction of the temple building in Alachua, Florida, and was instrumental in launching and developing Krishna.com, the temple on the web. Is currently writing books about bhakti, the heart and soul of yoga, to reach a Western audience. Her first book, Wise Love, Bhakti, and the Search for the Soul of Consciousness, won numerous awards, including the prestigious Montagna Medal, given for the most thought-provoking books that illuminate progress and redirect thought. Forgive me. Bhakti Shakti, Goddess of Divine Love, also received awards, and the 3rd book of the Bhakti series, which she's working on now, Prema Kirtan, Journey into Sacred Sound, is due out shortly. Okay, so Hare Krishna, Pranada, welcome. It's so wonderful to be able to sit down with you again.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's really a joy to see you and your blissful smile and upbeat joy in practicing Krishna consciousness. I think those are Radha's Lotus feet you have on there.
Actually, it's Radha and Krishna. Yeah, it's both of them together. Yeah. And they're standing together. I actually got it right outside of from the beadwala outside of Krishna Balaram Temple in Vrindavan. So I'm talking to you today because we want to hear about your experiences with Srila Prabhupada's books. As I mentioned before, the Education Ministry has started this beautiful initiative, and they've talked to many, many senior devotees. And I thought that you were just an inspirational person to talk to because you have written some of your own books, which I have had the pleasure of reading. And I know that from Srila Prabhupada's teachings and from everything that you have experienced in your many, many years of practicing bhakti, that you would have something meaningful to say. So thank you.
I hope so. You have to give me some blessings.
Oh, so my first question for you is, what was your first encounter with Srila Prabhupada's books? And I think I know this already, but I can't wait to hear you tell it again.
Okay. Did I tell you the story before?
Yes, you have told me before.
Personally or on tape? Should I not repeat it?
No, please repeat it. Please.
Okay. It's really quite, and I feel very blessed by how Prabhupada came to me through his books. And really, I know a lot of devotees were attracted to prasadam or kirtan or association, but I was not I was very embarrassed about kirtan, and I did not like the Indian cooking, and I was kind of starved when I first became a devotee. And and of course, the association was crucial, but really, Srila Prabhupada's books are what moved me, and it immediately moved me. But it took me a while to connect with them by the will of Providence. By the time I actually sat down to read the first two little books that I had received, I was more than ready, and the experience was, well, completely transformational, completely derailed the awful trajectory of my life and gave me meaning. And but it starts when I was 8 years old, and I was watching by myself. I think it must have been like a Sunday morning or something, a TV program about these ancient manuscripts, and they had these like literally ancient manuscripts, maybe even on rice paper or something like that. And the documentary narrative voice was talking about how these were so rare. These books, they were full of spiritual knowledge and wisdom and practical advice, but they were in a language few people knew, and it was this wisdom, this knowledge may be lost to human society. And I turned off that TV program, and I was beside myself, anxious, that thinking, how could adults let something like this happen, where something so precious as knowledge could be lost to us? And it was such a profound experience that at 8 years old, I started praying about receiving knowledge. And for some reason, I have no idea why, but my prayers asked to be revealed, have the books of the absolute truth revealed to me. And I don't know where I got that term. I was in, Lucas Valley, California, in a track home, going to Catholic school in Terra Linda. And, I don't know where I heard the absolute truth, but that's what I was praying for, books of the absolute truth. And it really shook up my life so much. I gave up playing with kids. I gave up all games. All I was doing was praying and looking and reading. And I remember picking up the little Bible in our home, and it was just impenetrable for me. And so after like some time praying, I said, well, maybe I need to up the ante in my prayer. So I said, well, God, if you please show me the books of the absolute truth, I will surrender everything. And it took me a long time to say that prayer, because by this time I was probably like 10 years old, and I was starting to get beside myself that the knowledge hadn't been revealed. And but I knew that making that prayer was no small thing, and I hesitated to make it for months. But then I was so desperate, I made it. I made that prayer. I kept on searching. Things weren't being revealed to me, and I was looking at the world, at politics, and then I was looking at the counterculture and what was happening in that. Nothing, and of course, the music of the counterculture was speaking so deeply to me. Nothing was ringing true. And so I asked my father, could we read books at night when you come home from work? And I was 13 by that time. And he said, yeah, let's do that. So we were reading Death and Ouspensky and Carlos Castanada's books, and Be Here Now and Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and Zen Buddhism, all the books that were flooding the market. And for his 34th birthday, when I was 14, I wanted to give him a copy of Paramahamsa Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi, which was just, a bestseller, and it was hitting, everyone was talking about it, and I wanted to read it with my dad. So I went into Sausalito by myself, bus, ferry, Sausalito to the Tides bookstore, and I went right to the Autobiography of Yogi, and I picked it up, And I was kind of quite happy to have it, hardbound book. But something caught my eye toward the floor. You know, the bookshelves, there were bookshelves everywhere. First of all, I was very happy to be in the bookstore. I don't think I'd ever been in a bookstore before. I think my father was getting all the books. And I was in this bookstore just feeling so happy. But anyway, there were books everywhere and I was taking in, and I felt like I could stay here for years in this store. But anyway, I looked down and a book caught my eye. And I reached down and I picked it up, and it was this little tiny, thin, little tiny book like this, right? Nothing compared to Autobiography of Yogi. And I turned it over, and there was this Swami I'd never seen before. And I was like, what is this? You know? And I looked at the cover, Beyond Birth and Death. And I was like, there's another one down there. So I reached down there and I picked it up, looked at it, Easy Journey to Other Planets. I thought, wow, what is this? I could not put these books down. I put Autobiography of a Yogi down and I took these books, but I was thinking, no, this isn't right. So I put them back and I grabbed Autobiography of Yogi, and I went like this for like 20 minutes, back and forth and back and forth. And I didn't, it was like, I couldn't make up my mind. And I finally said, no, I have to get these books. And I put Autobiography of a Yogi down. I took these books and went out, packaged them up, handed them to my father for his birthday. And I have a very distinct memory. He took the books out and went like this and sat them down. And he was kind of like, thanks, Lolo. Like it was like, where was that from? Why did you choose that? I was devastated, and we didn't read those books. I never picked them up again. No, you know, I just left them aside. I was so sad that my father had disapproved. I didn't please him. So a couple years later, my mother and father became more like hippies. We sold everything, got a Jeep and a trailer, left California, sold absolutely everything except for some clothes, and packed it in a trailer and went into Mexico, and we were headed to the Caribbean to do a scuba diving business, and went there. That failed terribly. We were running out of money. There were problems. But my father said, well, let's invite your sister to come, and we'll have a birthday we'll have a birthday party here for her, because she hadn't followed us on the trip. So she came, and she brought with her 2 boxes from California of our belongings. And I had no idea that we had any belongings left. As far as I knew, everything was gone, but evidently there were 2 boxes left, and she brought them. So very quietly, I just went up to the boxes and opened it up and started. As soon as I opened up the first box, I wasn't very far into it, and there was Beyond Birth and Death and Easy Journey to Other Planets. And I was like, oh my God, they've followed me all. I couldn't put them down in the bookstore. And now they've followed me 3 years later all around the world. Why in the world would we have kept those 2 books out of all of our earthly possessions? I didn't even know. And I took them, and I quietly took them, because I had disapproval when I first brought them in, but this time I was reading them. You know, no one's going to stop me. So I took them a couple of days later, and I sat down, started to read them, and oh my God, the synapses were, firing, and, things that I had been thinking were being clarified. But I was having trouble with all the Sanskrit, and I was pretty young. I was only 16 at the time. And I was trying to understand everything. So the next day I decided I'm coming with a dictionary, and I looked up every single word I didn't understand in the dictionary, and I looked every word in the every Sanskrit word in the dictionary, in the glossary that I didn't understand. And oh my God, by the time I put down the books on the second day, I was completely transformed. My whole world literally collapsed. It felt like, if you shatter something and it breaks in a million pieces, and everything looks different. Nothing looks the same. I was no longer the daughter of my mother and father. I was no longer the sister of my siblings. I was not of this world. And everything that I had been searching for was answered. And then I remembered my prayer that if I found the books of the absolute truth, I would surrender everything. And of course, what does Prabhupada talk about in his books? The absolute truth. Like, it's one of his statements, right? So I realized my prayer had been answered, and now I had a responsibility, which scared the hell out of me, of course, because it was like, this is so much truth, and it spoke to me so deeply. And at that time, by the time I sat down to read the books, I was almost feeling suicidal. Like, if I didn't find an answer, I really had no reason to live. I was just absolutely desperate. So Prabhupada opened the world to me in that moment. And I had no idea about an international society for Krishna consciousness. I had no idea what the practice was. I had vague concepts of Krishna and Radha. I got that I was not the body, and that was just so profoundly altering, but I didn't know everything. And then somebody took me to a kirtan. I was in Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic when I was reading those books, and I went to a kirtan at the ISKCON temple in Santo Domingo in 1974. And my first question to a devotee I met there was, what are the 10 offenses? And he didn't know. So I didn't know what the 10 offenses were for chanting. But anyway, we moved from Santo Domingo to Los Angeles some months later. And as we were coming into the city, a devotee handed me a mantra card inviting me to the temple in Los Angeles, New Dwarka. And I went and was extremely moved by my experience and moved in the ashram 2 weeks later. Wow. And stayed there. But Prabhupada's books have been really my source of everything, really. When we hear the Sambandha Gyan, or the truth of relationships, our relationship with Krishna, our relationship with the world, our relationship with the spiritual master, with the practices, with the holy name, then we really are beginning to develop a foundation for a practice which will bring us realized knowledge that we're getting in the books, right? The books can be theoretical at first, as much as they are profound, but they can be a little theoretical. But they are forming the basis of the practice, which makes it not theoretical. So that's my beginning journey with Prabhupada's books. He reached out and he grabbed me through his books, and he just didn't let me go. For which I am obviously eternally grateful, and why I engage in my practices and attempt to offer him a little service because of the books that he's given us.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that inspiring story. You're so very fortunate to have come across this book so young, so early in your life, so that you could, or so early in this particular lifetime.
Yeah,
Because clearly you've done that before.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you saved yourself from a lot, or Krishna saved you, and Srila Prabhupada saved you from a lot. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful, so beautiful. And how often do you read Srila Prabhupada's books now?
Well, I read them quite often. I mean, I've gone through stages, but it's like I've read all the Bhagavatams several times, all the Chaitanya Charitamrita many times, the Gita many times, all of his little books that saved my life. I just continue. I just continue hearing. I'm also, in his books, he also speaks about books of our acharyas and that we should read them. So I also read in those books. I've just finished a study of the works of whatever I had of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And that was extremely beautiful, I would say, experience, because what's happening is understanding the great souls that my dear Prabhupada adored and gave his life to spread to follow their instructions and spread fulfill their wishes for spreading bhakti around the world. And so I feel like it was getting to know Prabhupada better, to get to know his spiritual master and our great-grandfather's spiritual master. I have also in recent years been seriously studying the works of the six Goswamis and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vijayabhushan. We are really blessed with a wealth of knowledge. And one of the things that's interesting is how much Prabhupada did give in his books that are in the works of our acharyas. So I read constantly in Prabhupada's books, and because in his books he says to read these other texts, these Gaudiya Vaishnava texts, Vaishnava Vedanta, I do read and study them to my great amazement and gratitude, and just awe at how much that everyone, our acharyas, have given us of themselves and of their realizations and feelings for our supreme friend, that little blue boy who likes cows and herds them and gets dust on his hair when he comes back from the afternoon herding.
Yes, and it must be quite a task to read Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's writings. I know I've read a couple of essays of his, and they, were so, I mean, just so deep and so high. And
yeah, well, he definitely spoke and wrote like that, but some of the work is not as impenetrable as as others. He wrote a lot of articles for the publications he was publishing. I mean, he had a lot of book projects, but he also wrote constantly these articles, and those were a little easier. Whatever ones that I had access to, they were a little easier to understand. But you really get a feeling for the people, person of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the person Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I just fall in dandavats in this absolute, just stunned awe of who these souls are and how, by Prabhupada's mercy, we are connected to this line that is extraordinary. And and how it all reached me through these two little books, right? That changed my life and the lives of so many people.
yeah, yeah. And of course you can connect with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's writings because you are so intelligent, and your brain, just from reading the books that you've written, the way that your brain works, you see such a your vision is so wide. You're able to encompass so much and in such a small.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that obviously whatever I have written is because of Srila Prabhupada and his blessing me. And I do feel this one thing strongly about Prabhupada's books. He wrote those books to change us, to bring us to love of Krishna. And one of the things he said was that we should write, because writing and speaking are two, direct angas of writing and speaking about Krishna are two direct angas of bhakti that are very engaging the mind and the heart. Like if you read or if you listen to a class, it's more it's more passive. It's a more passive activity. I mean, if you're really paying attention and you're engaging in the dialogue or you're engaging with the text, it could be less passive, or it is obviously for many devotees less passive, but in general it tends to be a more passive activity. When you're speaking and you're writing, you have to be more present and you have to be more present. So I think that it's important for devotees to write as a development of our Krishna consciousness, as a development of our understanding, and as a gift to others. I mean, if we share something from the heart, then it can actually touch another heart. And our line is a commentarial line. The Gaudiya lineage requires, not that I'm one of them, but that we need authors, we need writers, we need people expressing their realizations wherever they are in the path, because it's going to speak to a certain group of people, and that group of people will be touched by that. That's their lifeline. And Prabhupada, I believe, wanted us to extend that lifeline by studying his books, taking that into the heart, and then sharing it in the best, most real way that we can. It's not just parroting, it's really trying to be present and share our experience of how we've been changed. I mean, we've been profoundly changed, and the philosophy and theology of bhakti is so unique and extraordinary and unmatched in the theological world. So, and we've been touched by it. So I don't think that's ordinary, and so that's why I think we should take up Prabhupada's desire that we write and add to the books for people to reach.
And it's so lovely that you and other disciples of Srila Prabhupada are writing books and making this knowledge. I mean, Srila Prabhupada's books, he made everything so much more accessible to us as Westerners in the modern world. But now that you and other disciples are writing books as well, you're making it even more accessible for us, and also more accessible to people who are not already practicing Krishna consciousness. It's giving them a window, or even a doorway in to this practice.
And I think that there should be hundreds of books. I mean, look at how many books on Buddhism we have, and really we have, and Advaitin thought, a Neo-Advaitin thought. We have the bookshelves are overflowing with this content. And what are they from? They're from practitioners. Right. And it's people like that. They want to hear from practitioners because of the exchange of heart that goes on there. And I think that we need to have a lot of Gaudiyas, Prabhupada's disciples and grand disciples writing to bring out further what he has given. It doesn't do away with what Prabhupada gave. It just glorifies what Prabhupada has given. And I just feel that there should be on the bookstore shelves everywhere, there should be a lot of testimony and experience from from the Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective, because we have so much to offer, and way beyond just the kind of great psychology that Buddhism offers, or the escape that Advaitin thought offers. So I hope a lot of people read Prabhupada's books, imbibe it, and then share their realization either through speaking or writing and giving the books. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I was just thinking of as well is that because you are his disciples, I mean, you all had, experiences and direct contact with him. And that's something so very rare, again, in the modern world, and especially in the West, for us to actually be able to, hear about your experiences with him and understand that what you're giving us comes from what you've learned directly from him. I mean, that's so powerful. That's so powerful to have that,
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't have much association with him at all, and but we do have his books, and if you give a life in service, then we would expect that some mercy will come if we're trying to be sincere.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even if you didn't have, personal association with him, you've got the potency of his initiation of you. I think that's
Yeah, that's certainly
incredible.
available for. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we have a line, and that line continues through the mercy of the disciplic succession, through the persons of the parampara that bless the transcendental system of imparting knowledge, and the mantras from one disciple to the next. So we're in really good company.
Yeah.
We
Very-
have a really powerful lineup of people helping us.
Yeah, yeah. It is kind of mind-blowing. It is
It's
definitely
very, very
mind-blowing when you think about it. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so much mercy that, Srila Prabhupada gave up so much to
powerful.
come here to give us.
Well, just think of, okay, we're talking about his books.
Mm.
What did he give up to give us his books? He basically stopped sleeping for 10 years, for all intents and purposes. I mean, he slept for a few hours at night and maybe caught a cat nap here and there. But he woke in the middle of the night. He wrote in the middle of the night. And then during the day carried on his vigorous preaching work, activities, establishing, transporting an entire culture onto foreign Western soil, and not only implanted in the hearts of thousands of people faith in bhakti, but cultivated that in such a loving, caring, attentive way for the little guys and the big guys. Everyone got the same loving care from him, and yeah, he made all the many sacrifices to give us the Bhagavatam, to give us the Chaitanya Charitamrita, these two core theological masterpieces, and he did it in the middle of the night, not even writing. It's one thing, if you take a pencil and you write down your thoughts, that's kind of like you can kind of like construct your thoughts a little bit easier. But when you're speaking your thoughts into a dictaphone, that's different. And he didn't go back after those tapes and get to cross out what he had a second thought about, or it just came, this flow of realization and love. And as he said, guided by Krishna in giving those books.
Mm.
Certainly, certainly those who have been moved by his books have felt it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, his purports are just my Bhagavatam group, we're in the sixth canto. We're just at the tail end of Ajamil's pastime.
Mm.
And every purport up until this point, and I know it goes on. I've read ahead on some things, but um it's just I almost have no words. It's just truly incredible what he put into each and every purport. I mean, there isn't a single purport that's not full of realization or
I was just
that.
thinking, there's this one, I think it's the ISKCON journal. Anyway, I'm not sure, but there's a new issue that just came out. And one of the pieces is written by Garuda Das, and he's speaking about the living theology that's present in Prabhupada's books. And by that, what he said was, and I found this very interesting, that, Prabhupada didn't kind of like lay it out like A, B, C, D. He just gave his heart in the books as it kind of like flowed. And so you have to almost, and this is not what Garuda said, but it's a feeling that I have, that you almost have to like read all the books and imbibe this bhava of Srila Prabhupada as best you can. And then you have to start, like developing a framework for this grand living theology that he just lived, and he expressed it in his works, and trying to give it structure and make sense of it, and like put it together, because he just gave himself in such a way through his books, his lived being of living in Krishna consciousness. We just got the whole thing. Then we had to like, okay, now what is the philosophy exactly? We know the philosophy, but how does it kind of like fit all together, and how does it flow in the Gita? Where does it piece together in a way that our logical brain, that's the logical brain looking for that. But
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a favorite of Srila Prabhupada's books?
I love them all. I really do love them all. I really do love them all. Um, yeah, I mean, I love the Bhagavatam. I love the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I love his Gita. I love his Nectar of Devotion, his Krishna book. No, they are my life. They have nourished me and given me life. I honestly don't have a favorite.
I know it's a tough question. It's hard
No, I don't have a favorite.
to choose. Yeah, yeah. What do what what do you feel are the important reasons to read Srila Prabhupada's books regularly?
To purify the heart and make it a place suitable to petition Krishna to place his lotus feet, and be able to serve, become a servant of Srimati Radharani. I think it's important to read his books to change, to really become situated in the self. Because what are his books? What are his books describing? He's describing prema, what it is and how to achieve it, and that it is the highest attainment of the soul. And I mean, that's what he's talking about. These books are talking about the highest attainment of the soul that you cannot find anywhere else. I mean, we have bhakti in different religions and in different ways. Bhakti exists in the world. There's nothing as comprehensive of a doctrine of divine love as Gaudiya Vaishnavism is. And so we have this expansive window into what prema is, beckoning us and inviting us and showing us this is the way, and it's full self-surrender. And in order to move forward that highest attainment, we need to be on solid ground and be resituated on that solid ground regularly, because the material world is insurmountable. I mean, it's not possible to conquer material energy and its illusory influence on us, the illusion that we exist in. So we're reading to become servants. Yeah. If we get the fortune of becoming a servant, and that's what Prabhupada is offering us, entrance into the highest realm, which is a realm of service.
So, we're often told that reading Srila Prabhupada's books helps us better understand his mood and his mission. Do you have any personal experience or realization with that you would like to share about Srila Prabhupada's books in regard to his mood and mission?
Mood and mission. Yeah, I mean, he was a living example of love of Krishna. And that it comes out in his books. But when I said that, I was thinking of being in his presence, and how, really being in his presence, I personally felt transported into another realm, to the spiritual realm. Like I tangibly experienced the spiritual world being in his presence. It was palpable. And when I become absorbed in reading his books, I also feel that. And like what I was just describing, what is the spiritual realm, and what is his mood? Well, his mood is love of Krishna, and he was so full of compassion for the suffering of the souls of this world. He was so driven by compassion. He wanted to take everyone with him on this gorgeous wave of love of God, and nothing could stop him. He was unstoppable. But it was all driven by this deep compassion for other souls and wanting them to have the experience of what it means to love God. He was just, he was a lover of God. And that's a lover of God on that level is just extraordinarily rare. And if we read what he says is his ecstasies in the purports of his books, we can be imbued with the sparks of that love, so that our own love will be sparked and grow into the kind of flame and fire that had possessed him, that made him such a beautiful presence in this world.
Yeah, and the fact that he said he gave us entrance, like you said, into that. I mean, he brought that to us.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we would have no other opportunity.
No, it's through Krishna's mercy is received through the mercy of the devotee. And Prabhupada generously gave that liberally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you were talking about sacrifices, I mean, he left Vrindavan, where Radha Damodar temple to come here. I mean, that's unimaginable, especially at his age, to do that. But it was out of his compassion.
Yeah, I mean, he was really driven by a very deep compassion. And yeah, he was driven by an extremely deep compassion, love. I mean, it was love of Krishna, but it was also love for the conditioned souls. He he really wanted to uplift, give them, he wanted to help them change their lives.
Mhm. So we're also advised to read Srila Prabhupada's books so that we may see the world through the eyes of scripture, through Shastra.
Mhm.
Can you give us some examples from your own life of how that might look?
Seeing life from the eyes of the scriptures. You know, I'm still developing those eyes by the mercy of my spiritual master. I think there are levels of the eyesight, the spiritual eyesight that one gains through hearing and chanting and practicing. And I feel like I'm still developing the sight. One of the things in reading Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I was really struck by his level of Guru Nishta, his faith in his Guru, and his living his life based on that absolute, immovable faith in his Guru. And I was just thinking, my God, may I be blessed with the vision that that kind of Guru Nishta awards that is it completely shuts down the possibility of a material vision of the world. And that's what we are obviously trying to do, is to shut down that material vision that we have and open to the real vision, to see not only who we are, but everyone else, and how everything is to be used in Krishna's service. I mean, this is not just like ordinary, okay, I'm going to program my mind. Like when I was doing selling Prabhupada's books for many years, I found that to be the most wonderful service. And because it was hard and it produced a lot of prayer. But one of the things that I would do in those as a neophyte was to conscientiously think about the soul and the heart of the person that I would approach and see God in their heart. And in one sense, that's kind of like a superficial thing where you're consciously trying to change the angle of vision. But I think that that's what we're doing. We need to consciously change the angle of vision based on what we hear from scripture. And then gradually we actually start seeing with those eyes, with the eyes of the soul. We start actually seeing the reality that is beyond the illusion. And for me at least, it's coming in waves or layers that I'm continually building on. So when you say, what have I seen? Well, I don't know. Some of it's been, trying to program myself. Some of it has been revealed. But seeing Krishna as the source, my source, the source of the whole world, that I'm completely dependent on him, that he's merciful and is controlled by love, and that my spiritual master was very dear to him. And I just want to please my spiritual master in any way I can. That's a little different than a mundane vision.
Yeah, it's I just also want to add that this is just my I feel like I thank you for your humility because your vision again from my neophyte point of view is very sharp and very, I mean, as I explained to you before, I'm reading Bhakti Shakti for the second time, and I'm reading it with a group of new devotees who were all just so in love with the book. And the fact that you found a way to, I have it right here, the fact that you found a way to introduce Srimati Radharani to all of us in such a comprehensive way, without, it's such an esoteric subject. And is a subject that, that, or her personality is not well known to anyone outside of Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
It's really interesting because I actually don't go into a lot of detail about Srimati Radharani. It's almost like I'm just touching the surface of who Srimati Radharani is, what she represents. But because it is so vast and it is a proper introduction, you kind of like feel, and you feel all the sacredness of what I'm being shown here, and the depth of it, even though I'm just getting like a glimpse. But yeah, I think I think that book is really good for a number of reasons. I think it's good because it speaks to this global dialogue about the feminine divine and the goddess, and it's an entry point for people to come into bhakti. There's a group of people that it's a prominent point where they can enter the bhakti world and just kind of like enter in and go, wow, this is amazing, and it'll take them, it'll take them further, and if they get a little experience of tasting them, tasting the chanting, then they'll, Krishna has his ways to hook us, right? So I think it's a good hook.
It's a wonderful hook because it redirects, because much of society, at least in America, I can say it because I've seen it just from being a yoga instructor and being in women's movements and things like that. And, everybody's they're looking for direction, and they're looking, so many people are turning toward goddess worship. And
it's huge.
Yeah.
I don't think people know how huge it is. I mean, in general, I don't think devotees know how huge this is. It's a massive movement.
Exactly. Yeah. And so this redirects us to the proper worship of the real goddess, and not, something made up or something that, people are grasping for just to find answers. And so it's beautiful because it brings us right to Radharani. It brings us right to Krishna. And that's what we need. And it
brings us right to Lord Chaitanya. And therefore it brings us right to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, because he is this exceptional servant of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, this personification of mercy.
So my next question is in terms of ISKCON as a movement. What do you think our movement would look like if devotees were reading Srila Prabhupada's book?
Oh my God.
I know, that's a big question.
What a question. What a question. Well, I think the thing that like really moved me deeply as you were saying that question is that if people were really studying Prabhupada's books, they would be moved to really take up a very serious sadhana. And if they took up a really serious sadhana, especially a japa sadhana, there would be so much shakti in this movement, it would be unstoppable. And I mean, the Shastra is meant to be lived. It's not just for acquiring knowledge. It's certainly, you can't get knowledge from Shastra just by reading. That's another thing. You can't just sit down and read and expect you to actually understand it. It's descending. It requires mercy. And it requires some application of ourselves in seeking that mercy. But if we approach the books like that, if we're asking for the knowledge to be revealed, then what's going to be revealed is that we have a rare human life. We have an extraordinary opportunity to develop a direct relationship with the source of everything, who is at the substratum of existence, who is our everything, who we exist by whose mercy we exist. And we want to be in relationship because all of our problems are that we're living outside of that relationship. All of them, relational, the internal existential angst, the seeking of happiness, the looking for grabbing onto things, everything that is driving our every move is just being driven by the fire of separation from Krishna. And if we grasp that in the most profound, fundamental way, we will grab onto a japa sadhana that will propel us very quickly forward to the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna. And with that kind of Shakti behind you, nothing is impossible. We have the life example of Prabhupada. We have the life example of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the Goswamis. I mean, what were their contributions? Who are these saints? And there is nothing that says we should not or cannot become the saints that they are. In fact, that's what we're supposed to do. And by reading the books, we are given the card, so to speak, to access it if we approach them humbly and seriously, sincerely, regularly, every day. If we're approaching them every day, Krishna will give mercy. And, you know, become empowered by Krishna, nothing is impossible. Desire to please your guru, nothing in the universe can stop you. So I think that everything would change dramatically, individual lives and the life of the community, and therefore the ability to help others, which is really just such a tragedy, you know. Like I see all of the discord in within the devotional community and relationships, and then so much silly misunderstanding and diverts our attention, and people are suffering and dying every day without Krishna consciousness. And oh my God, can't we just join forces and finally really understand the urgency that, like Prabhupada understood? He had such urgency. Listen to the tapes of him giving class in 1966 and his voice is absolutely urgent. And that urgency was like a little calmed down, but it was just more like, anyway, it was absolutely urgent. And we should develop that kind of urgency for our own benefit, for the benefit of the Sangha. That is, we all need Sangha to progress, and we need Sangha in order to serve our Guru in the ways that they wanted. Our line is definitely a preaching line. So read Prabhupada's books with the prayer to be enlightened and empowered, for the knowledge to be revealed and to be used as a servant to Guru.
And I have another question. This will probably be the last one. What have you found personally to be the most effective way to encourage others to read Srila Prabhupada's books?
I'm not really sure. I have such a joy of reading, and they are so meaningful to me. Maybe if I just spoke to people about what I've received from the books would be powerful. I think Krishna consciousness is a exchange of the heart, and if we have a taste and we have an experience, then we would be able to express that to varying degrees at least. And if it's coming from a really felt place, then likely that could be transferred to another heart. So I think more than just what would you say and how would you get someone to read, I think I have to read and be a lover of the books. And then I will be able to share that love with somebody else. And it's truly a love. It's truly a love affair. The gifts of Prabhupada's books. It's we need to live in the world, in that world, the world of the books, in the world of the Shastra. We can enter there and live there. We can do that. And that's what we want to do. And sometimes it's a gradual entry because we are entering in a totally different world. Right? We're exiting this world. We're gradually exiting this world. But when we're called to live in the transcendental world, then we'll really want to enter the books and live there.
Oh, thank you. And I just also want to add that you're doing that by writing books yourself. You're sharing so much that I think attracts, it has to. I mean, I've only read your books as a practicing sadhaka, but I think that by just reading your books, it's attracting others to Srila Prabhupada's books. Your service is, yeah, it's bringing so many to bhakti. So
just like Srila Prabhupada's books are when you enter into them and he points to the acharyas and he points to the whole world, right? So I'm writing something that I've understood from my spiritual master through reading and studying his books and practicing what he taught me. How can it not point to him and his legacy? I mean, hello, that would just be like the natural, that's the natural, that's how it works.
yeah.
That's how the whole thing works.
Mm. So do you have anything else that you would like to add at all to our conversation?
No, I so much thank you for speaking to me about Prabhupada's books and reminding me these gems and how important, how grateful I am, and how indebted I am to the devotees who made his books possible and distributed his books and continue to be absorbed in his books and giving his books. And as I said, I encourage everyone to write as Prabhupada instructed us so that his books can reach even more people where they're at. People are at different places, and so different people speaking will speak to different audiences. And I want to see hundreds of books by practicing by sadhakas. I want to see hundreds. There's so much room. There's so many people. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for welcoming me.
Yes,
Thank you for reading the books that I'm writing as a seva to my spiritual master.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for that, Seva, for inspiring the rest of us. And thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me and to share your inspirations to read Srila Prabhupada's books.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.